Welcome back, everyone. So in this video, I want to talk a little bit about some of the optimizations inside of React and the best practices around these optimizations. But at the same time, I want you to understand more what's happening whenever React is rendering the code that you write. So bear with me here. We're going to get a little bit into the weeds of JavaScript, but we're really going to come out of this as better developers. When we look at this render method, every time React needs to update the DOM, it runs this render method. Inside of this render method, I want you to focus specifically on this onChange callback that we've written. This here is called an anonymous function. And an anonymous function is a function that is not stored anywhere in a variable. What this means is that when JavaScript runs this code and it comes across this line, what it sees is that there is a function being created. So what it will do is it will create this function for you. But what happens afterwards is that it gets thrown away. And the reason why this is significant is because every time render is being run, this function is getting reinitialized. It's getting recreated every single time render runs. Because once it's done with it, it throws it away. So there's actually nowhere in memory that's keeping track of this function. The reason why this is problematic is because, technically speaking, we actually never update this function. What I mean by this is that, yes, the event value will change, but that is the event value. That's not actually the function itself. If you think about it like this, the event is being passed into our function, but our function is not getting rewritten. Even though we're referring to this event, JavaScript is smart enough to know, oh, this event is not something that this function is controlling. In fact, the only thing about this function is that it doesn't change. And as a result, every time we are reinitializing it, we are actually making our app a little bit less performant. So with just this one function, your performance is not going to see any hit at all. And we're going to do a really deep dive into performance and in performance optimizations in React much later in the course. But what I want to do is I want to explain to you some of the optimizations and the reasons why we write code the way we do. Because when it comes to just one function, this is perfectly fine. But when you have a lot of them, then your component really starts to slow down. So in general, this is a needless performance risk that we don't have to have. So what we do in order to improve this with a class component is we move this method out into the component because this is a method related to our component. Specifically, it's related to our search. So what we can say is we can create a brand new method on our component called onSearchChange. And this is going to be the callback itself. So everything here for this callback, we can just copy like so. And now what we need to do is we can just pass this onSearchChange right here. Or we got to say this dot onSearchChange because it's attached to our class now. And now if we save, we go back to our code. As we type, we see that everything still works. So this is just one of those things where if you think about onSearchChange, this class component is only going to build this function once when it initializes the class for the first time because it's a method. Once that method is initialized, whenever render runs, right now it's just always going to refer to this method that's already been initialized. It's not going to just reinitialize an anonymous function over and over again every time render gets called. That's the difference in what we've just done. So this is just one of those optimizations we can make. Another optimization we can make is that instead of just calling this everywhere, we can actually use destructuring in ES6. And destructuring is a big benefit for this exact reason. It makes our variables look shorter and it makes things easier to read. So what we can do at the very top here, inside of our render, is we can say, I want to initialize a constant and I want to pull it off of this dot state. So inside of this object, what I'm going to do is I want to get the monsters and I want to get the search field. And I also want to get off of this onSearchChange. And what we've done here is we have pulled off these different methods and values that were originally on this.state and this, and we've cast them to variables. And now what we can do, instead of calling this.state, is I can just say, give me monsters, use the search field, and then use search change on search change. This is actually mistyped. There we go. So now if we save, and we go back to our application, we see that everything still works the same way. So here we've performed two big optimizations. The main benefit of this optimization is that it's more readable for us. When we look here, we see that these variables are being initialized, so we know what we're getting off of this.state and off of this. So later on, when we see these values, we know where they're coming from. And the other optimization we made was that we made our app a little bit more performant by not unnecessarily rendering extra anonymous functions whenever the render call is being called. Instead, we've moved it up into the method, which only gets called and initialized once when our class component initializes. So just a couple quick improvements to our code now. And hopefully this actually makes it seem a lot more readable to you as well. Because as you're looking through your code and you're looking through these methods, you are looking at all the things that are getting involved. You see this on search change, and now when you read this input, you see, oh, this is on search change. You don't have to read through an anonymous function here. You just know that if you were to care about what it includes, you could go look at it when you need to look at the method. Otherwise, it's also a performance improvement. So with this, we have now improved our application and we've added our search feature. In the next video, we are going to start implementing some of the other improvements to the application. Primarily, we're going to start moving some of these different features out into a component architecture. And with that, we're going to talk about the folder structure. So it's a lot of very interesting things. But if you're confused about any of the improvements we made here, please watch this video again and really try and understand what it is that's happening with that anonymous function and these renders. We'll definitely bring this up a lot more in future lessons as well. But this is a good time, I think, to introduce this concept because moving forward, we're always going to write our code this way. So hopefully you understood that, and let's move on to the next video.